Hello there, captains, and welcome back to Naval Action with me, Sorvesteon. Today, I've got a special guest with me. I think it's McCandless or McCandless. I don't know. How do I pronounce your name?
McCandless or McCandles, I'll respond to all.
Or for us who know him in the clan, we just call him Zeal. It's much easier. Anyways, so we're here to talk about what's been going on with AUSEZ, now known as Aussie or AUSFC, the Forsaken Corsairs. And we're going to cover basically why AUSEZ switched from being British to being pirate. And I think what we'll do is we'll break the video up into kind of three parts. First, let's go over, kind of the build-up to this kind of switch, and then we'll go over the switch itself, and then let's cover a bit of the fallout. I think it's really important for us to kind of cover why this happened and what was going on, kind of give the history to kind of set the stage for this big switch. Then we can talk about the switch and definitely want to cover a little bit of the fallout that's kind of happened since. So let's get into the first little bit of kind of key information, and that's actually talking about what a council is. I mean, I don't think a lot of players are familiar, especially the casual ones, are familiar with a council. Zeal, or actually I'll call you McCandless for the rest of this video. McCandless, can you tell me what is a council and what does a council do in this game?
Right. Okay. So the idea of a council is basically it's all player run, player made, because the game didn't have any sort of mechanics to deal with international politics amongst all the different nations. And so the idea was that we would get all the major clans and any other clans that sort of wanted to join in and create, I guess you'd call it a democracy, to try and help everyone work together to achieve common goals for the nation in-game. The way the British Council was structured was that basically you'd have all your major clans, all your minor clans, and every month you would have a vote to choose 3 major clan representatives, and you would have one person from each of those clans, and they would act as the diplomats for the nation, interacting with other nations' councils that they'd also set up. So that's I guess that's the main purpose and goal behind it all.
So what I'm hearing from you is, kind of to quickly summarize, a council is kind of like the union of all the clans in a particular nation, so that the nation can act as like a united single kind of entity, as opposed to just being like a mishmash of people doing all sorts of different things.
Yep, pretty much keeps everyone on the same page and avoids conflict about, oh, you gave this port up, or I wanted that port, things like that.
And in Naval Action, especially because of the way the timers work on ports, councils are also very useful for coordinating between defense responsibilities for different timers and such things like that, and also coordinating defense on ports between multiple clans. Is that correct?
Yeah. So one of the main issues that was always discussed at these council meetings was which areas of operation would be on what timers, and therefore which clans would be responsible for them. It also organised, okay, maybe the American nation has a group of ports set on this timer, so we'll send these clans up there because that's when they're active and they can attack those ports. And yeah, just coordination between time zones, really, more than anything else.
All right, so actually that brings me to my next question. Let's talk a little bit about what AUSEZ, well, it was still British. Let's talk a little bit about what area was your clan responsible for, kind of in, the British nation.
So basically, if you have a look at the map, if you follow the ports from Yissil all the way down to Gracias that entire coastline was our responsibility to begin with, and then some other major clans come over as well. There was RGL, I think the Brits were over there for a time, and some of the other guys. That was our main area of defense, and then as more clans started moving over there, we sort of, to avoid stretching ourselves too thin, we sort of started focusing mainly on the coast around Truxillo, and helped RGL and some of the other major clans sort of up north there near Tullum and Contoy and those sort of areas.
So you guys actually, it sounds like this is before I joined AUSEZ. It sounds like AUSEZ was responsible for quite a large area at the beginning. And then as, other British clans kind of migrated over, you guys kind of split up the territory amongst the British clans.
Yeah, pretty much. We're in a fairly good position to start when the game went open beta for everyone, open alpha for everyone. Me and some of the other leadership just got a bunch of guys together from the public chat and just worked our way all the way down to, I think it was Gracias, and then we just started spending all our time capping all the ports over there. So we were one of the first clans over there, and we just sort of, we grabbed pubbies until we had our own numbers, basically. And then, I think once we secured the territory over there, I think it was safer for other people to come over. They all come over and joined in with it as well.
You know what? This is probably a really great time to actually mention or to give you a bit of an introduction. I totally skipped ahead and totally forgot to kind of introduce who you are. Although I think most people know who you are. But for anyone who doesn't know, McCandless here is the leader of AUSEZ and now the current leader of AUSFC, and which was one of the, I think, the second largest clan in the British nation.
I think at one point we did have the second highest numbers. I think we were second to
SLRN?
I think it was actually SLRN had the highest active numbers, but I think British West Indies Trading Company had the largest clan. They actually hit the clan cap at 200 or 250, whatever it is, but I don't know how many were active at any given time.
Okay, I see. So let's get back to AUSEZ's kind of defense duty. So you guys were splitting up the kind of this gigantic coastline, from the Yucatan over to Gracias a Dios, amongst these different clans. And it sounded like you had other clans like Brits and RGL. RGL moved up into the northern area, and Brits was also down around Truxillo. Is that correct?
Brits, I actually started up on the southern coast of Cuba when it was still British. Because when we were most active up in the north there, the most contested area was between Yissil and Corrientes on the tip of Cuba there. And we were just constantly fighting back and forth against the Spanish up there. So the Brits are in the southern Cuba, and then sort of moved over to the northern Yucatan for a little bit. So they were up there, and yeah, as you said, RGL moved over to Tullum.
All right, so now that we know, what AUSEZ was responsible for and who was kind of helping out and how stuff was divided, can you tell me, where did AUSEZ start kind of running into troubles with the British Council? Because I think that's fairly well known at this point. What I don't think is well known is kind of what happened and what kind of more specifically, what happened to AUSEZ as a result of it.
Yeah, so I guess it was a slow build up, I guess. For the most part, we didn't have any major issues with the council. There was always bickering, and we weren't the only clan that had issues at any given time. And there was always somebody's had issues somewhere. I think it just got to a point where we were sort of stuck over there in the west, and nobody really wanted to sort of come and help us. Yet we were always sort of, I guess, expected to help everybody else. And and one of the other major issues was that ports that we owned were on our timers were being used as bargaining chips with other nations, because the clans that were using them as bargaining chips didn't care about that western area, and so would just throw away our ports to give to other nations. I don't care if they didn't care about the West so much, but it would have been nice for them to at least discuss it with us first. But we'd usually find out after a flag was pulled, or like, you know, late notice, basically, that, oh, this is happening, by the way, you guys should probably toe the line, sort of thing. So I guess that was sort of the major tipping point. And the fact that when Sorry was invading the coast along Florida and Louisiana and all that, and Mexico, we basically had a brief discussion with them about drawing a line, basically, somewhere, saying, let's not fight here. And the council essentially undermined that and accused us of collaborating with the enemy, essentially. People who didn't have all the facts were throwing accusations, and so that was the last straw for us. We decided, no, that's enough, we're leaving.
If I remember correctly, the British had gone up and kind of taken like Conil, Cuyo, Salem, and Yisel, right? And that northern part of Yucatan, and Contoy and Mugaris, and also Tantan Cuzamil. And as I recall, the Spanish were basically on one front, like AUSEZ was defending from the Spanish, and then it was also kind of that threat of the pirates, because they had come like the map currently, the Americans owned that whole area, you know, on the west of Florida, but that was previously all pirate, right? And this part of eastern Florida, the eastern coast, and the western part of Florida was also owned by the pirates. It's now Spanish, and they had come all the way around, right, past like Barataria, all the way down, and they were approaching Tampico, and that's why you guys were talking about like making that line, right? Because AUSEZ was basically about to face a war on two fronts, from the combined might of the Spanish nation as well as the might of Sorry. Is that correct?
Yeah, essentially, we just only wanted to wanted to fight on one front, and Sorry was more than happy to draw a line there and say, yep, that's fine, we've had our fun up here, we'll move elsewhere. But everyone else wasn't too happy with that, so yeah, that's what happened there.
So how did they actually undermine you? Like you said, you struck a deal with Sorry, and like, how did they undermine that?
They made extensive plans at the time. They never got carried out in the end. They made plans to basically take massive fleets towards that area against the Spanish and the pirates, which would have provoked the pirates into basically annihilating the British out of the area, which would have included us as well. And all we've ever been trying to do this entire time was have peace in the West, so that we don't have to constantly have this front against the Spanish. Unfortunately, Spanish peace talks never worked out. There's a lot of bad blood there between them and the British, and so it's just one of those unfortunate things.
Well, the situation was even more complicated, wasn't it? Because it wasn't just AUSEZ. Like, AUSEZ had taken the ports up in the northern Yucatan, but was still like defending Truxillo and all the other ports in the area that you mentioned before. against basically, what was going to become a two-front war against the Spanish and the pirates, right? Were you getting any help from any of the other British clans? Like you mentioned before, RGL and Brits, they were in the area. Like, weren't they helping to defend that area of the northern Yucatan against, the pirates and the Spanish?
Yeah, so RGL, Brits, and GNF and Boom were right towards the end there were all the major clans up in that northern Yucatan. And we took all the way over to Tampico there with them, and they were helping us defend. And then close actually to when we decided to leave the council, I think it was maybe a week or two before that, most of the major British clans decided to up and leave and go and live in Kingston. I'm not entirely sure their reasoning behind it, but I think they were just sick of fighting over there, I guess, and decided to just up and leave. So we basically, our support was all gone, which I probably wouldn't have minded so much that the pirates might be fighting us, except that our support base was gone and it wasn't coming back. And we just simply don't have the numbers or to spread out that far from one side to the other.
Okay, I see. So it was kind of like three things. There was problems with the British Council. There was a lack of support. There was also disagreements. But that wasn't despite all the stuff that happened with the British Council and the stuff with the pirates and the Spanish, that wasn't your only reason for wanting to turn pirate, though, was it?
No, there's lots of reasons, actually. You could ask anyone in the clan and they'd give you a slightly different answer. For me personally... Yeah,
well, you're the leader, so for you, what do you... And you speak on behalf of the clan, so what do you feel are the main reasons?
The main reasons are national politics. Absolutely infuriate me. And I believed at the time that they weren't of benefit to Aussies. The other one was... people say, oh, you can PvP anyone, you don't have to be pirate to PvP, and you don't necessarily get more PvP when you're a pirate. And that might be true, but as a pirate, you have more opportunities to PvP without consequence. If you PvP in a nation against somebody who you're not supposed to be PvPing against, you might have a peace agreement or something with them, the ramifications are a lot more severe. It starts wars. It has done in the past and will continue to do so. So there's, being free of that responsibility makes the game a lot more fun, I think, and just I don't know how to put it really. I guess there's not as much a clan administration involved, because the whole mentality changes to a more free community to just do as you please, work together, and just achieve common goals without having the overarching restrictions of a major national movement or body, so to speak, if that makes sense. They were probably the three main reasons.
What about the developers? What about was there any intention to kind of make a statement about kind of the current mechanics surrounding pirates in the game?
Yeah, I think every clan that joins pirates, or every large portion of a nation that joins pirates, further highlights the fact at just how overpowered and broken they are. I won't deny that the pirates need fixing. They definitely do. And I think the blacker the map gets, the more it just highlights this issue. Whether they're still paying attention or not, I don't know. It was interesting to see that we did manage to take back everything that we owned as Britain with little to no resistance, which also highlights population imbalance, issues with the port timers, things like that as well. So it illustrates some points. Whether they listen or not, it's total another story.
So you had been like you listed a lot of reasons for wanting to go pirate. How long did you guys consider going pirate?
Well, a lot of people might not know, but we've actually considered doing it several times before now. Once quite early on in the piece when we were still a small group, and another couple of times when tensions were high, and then there's this time when we actually did. So for the leadership, at least, the idea has been there for quite some time, but it wasn't, nothing was really concreting it for us. This time round, we decided that we would put the decision to the clan as a vote. Everyone could have their say, and it wasn't just a vote, it was an open discussion amongst everybody to see what the majority of people wanted to do, who was interested, who wasn't, and their reasons why. The vote was set up to go for a week to give everyone a chance to decide, but the decision was, for the most part, very, very popular one, to go pirate, and people actually sort of jumped the gun and started just going anyway. So it really only ended up taking 3 or 4 days for the most people to come over, and there's still a few trickling in now, but we got most of our active PvPers across. So yeah, a quick decision to make it happen this time, but it has been in the back of our minds for a number of months now, probably.
Well, before you mentioned that there was, a lot of reasons for switching to pirate. What was there any one thing, the straw that broke the camel's back, so to say, that made you initiate this?
The straw that broke the camel's back were the negotiations and the accusations that occurred amongst the British Council regarding that whole incident with Sorry. I wasn't there for it. The diplomats that I'd appointed to represent Aussies were there. You hear a lot of different accounts of what actually happened, but only the people who were there truly know what happened. People just throwing shit at the wall and seeing if it sticks, basically, in terms of their version of events. But it was enough for me to decide that the council, regardless of what was going on, was no longer working for us. So that was pretty much the straw. I didn't see a point being part of a nation if the nation wasn't united, so we left.
I see. Did the Americans have anything to do with it? Before you mentioned that the pirates had taken pretty much all of Florida and pretty much all of the Gulf Coast, and that had really pushed the Americans out. Did the Americans have any sort of influence on the politics around the British Council or around your decision to leave? I think I remember you Aussies had made a deal to shelter some of the Americans, didn't they?
Yeah, so there's basically two groups of Americans. There's the American Council, and the rest is what you would consider rogue clans. We had an agreement with what was a rogue clan, and it was basically allowing them to keep some of the ports that they already owned in the area, and we would work together defensively. And they didn't really have much of an impact on our decision to go pirate. I think actually the clan that we were working with at the time, a lot of their members actually decided to flip pirate when they found out what was going on. So I guess maybe we influenced them, but they didn't really come into the decision making at all. What was going on with the Americans at all?
Okay, so I think that kind of covers like the history and the build up to the decision to switch. Let's talk more about like actually switching from British to pirate. So, you guys made the decision. It was to go ahead and to flip to being pirate. Was that challenging at all? Like how, my gosh, there's so many questions I want to ask about that. How long did it, well, let's start with the most basic one. First of all, how long did it take you guys to flip from being British to pirate?
To bring the entire clan across, it took about just under a week, I think. Not counting the few stragglers and people who were still sort of making their mind up, but the vast bulk of people came across in less than a week.
And did, like, how, there might be some people watching this who don't understand the mechanics concerned with how things are stored in ports. One of the big worries I think that anyone would have, switching to a different nation is what happens to my stuff? What happens to my ship? What happens to my rank? Can you kind of explain, what happens when you actually switch or change to being pirate from another nation?
Yeah, so swapping to pirate is unique to swapping nations. Swapping nations, you lose all your assets and everything, so it's not really a big issue. Like, it's just a clean slate. You keep your rank and your experience. Swapping to pirate, you keep everything. Sure, your assets might get locked out of the port because you can no longer access it. So if you had all your ships stored in a British port, once you become a pirate, you no longer have access to that port. But you didn't lose the assets, they're just there. So what happens is people either move their stuff to a free port so they can just get access to it immediately after switching to pirate, or if you have enough numbers, you can all switch pirate and then immediately pull an assault flag and take the port and immediately gain access back to all your things again. We did a mix of the two, and I'll admit that it's too easy. It's far, far too easy. It takes 30 seconds to turn yourself into a pirate and another hour to capture the port back, or an hour to move your stuff before you flip. It's quite a quick process as on an individual level.
So that sounds really, really easy. Like, basically, you don't even have to move your stuff. You just go out and, I guess, how would you turn pirate? You'd need to attack someone from your own nation, right? So
yeah.
How did, like, were the guys attacking each other, or could you just, like, attack a British NPC, or doesn't matter?
It really doesn't matter as long as you're British and they're British. I know some of the guys just attacked each other. That's what I did. I think some of the other guys might have went and had a bit of a cheeky stab at some of the other clans we'd worked with in the past, just for a bit of fun. But yeah, I mean, it's really just very simple.
I see. So so you can basically go out and attack an NPC or another British player, and then you turn pirate, and then all you have to do is turn around and take the port that you previously owned, which is obviously in your time zone because it's set to a timer that you're defending, and since no one else lives there, it's totally undefended.
Essentially, yeah.
Plus,
and especially in the Aussie time zone, there are some clans that operate in Britain in the Aussie time zone, but they weren't in that area at the time, so it was just a very smooth transition, really.
And not only that, but you get the loot from doing port battles.
Yes, you get a bonus for getting your things back. It's a bit of a cop out.
It's like the game is encouraging you to turn pirate.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the issues. It's too easy, and it's once you're in there, you have just as many powers as the nations, plus the added benefit of being able to fight each other when you're bored. Like, it's really just, yeah, it needs work. It definitely needs work.
So, so did everyone end up turning pirate that was in AUSEZ, or were there some people who kind of disagreed with it?
There was a lot that disagreed. I think the majority of them were from the European time zone, because I think that was where most of our PvE player base was. Most of the PvPers came across. There was a few that didn't, but the majority did. So we did take a numbers hit. We're not as big as we were, but it's all the active people. It's all the guys that have put the effort in previously and continue to put the effort in now. We even managed to convince some people who were dead against it. They were very loudly spoken about it. I even had some less than amicable discussions aimed at me, but in the end they come around, and I'm always happy to have them.
Oh, cool. So, it didn't sound like switching was really all that difficult.
No, it was actually yeah, it was a very smooth process. Happened quicker than I thought it would, and given how cheap it is to put a clan together and all that kind of stuff, it really just took no effort at all to set it all back up again. You know, because everything's managed outside the game in spreadsheets and things, at least for our group. All I had to do was change the name on the spreadsheet, and that was it.
I think the TeamSpeak might have been the most work, eh?
The TeamSpeak is a nightmare, and it still is. And all I have to say about TeamSpeak is that it has an absolutely horrendous permission system. I'm sure it's good for. It is good for managing who can get in where and who can see what, but it's just not intuitive. At least not for me. Oh, it's terrible.
I see. All right, so let's talk about some of the fallout from you switching. Oh, Fallout makes me want to go play Fallout now. Okay.
They're remastering Skyrim.
No way. Okay, yeah. We'll save that for another video. After you switched to becoming pirate, and everyone it was done, you became allies with the Spanish, right? And obviously with Sori as well.
Yeah. So it's actually quite. I can't say this without having a big grin on my face. The irony is that after all the fighting we did with the Spanish and the pirates, the alliance that we have with them is the most smooth-running, concrete, dramaless alliance that I've ever been a part of. There has never been any problems, no complaints. Everyone understands what's going on, and it's just simple. This is how it's going to be. Everybody agrees, and it's done. Nobody does anything to try and upset each other. It's yeah, it's great.
Well, so what about the Americans? Because Sori went over and just completely destroyed them earlier. They were also fighting the Spanish, and they were your allies. I remember AUSEZ, going over to help defend Florida from the Spanish and the pirates, and then you ended up changing to become pirates, and you guys went and proceeded to help the Spanish and Sori assault the Americans again.
Yes, so as many have put it, it's a traitorous act. But it's a game, so we go where the fun is. We had fun fighting the Americans. I think for the most part, the battles that they had with us, they had fun as well. Our goal as a clan wasn't to crush America. Our goal as a clan was basically it was a show of good faith, Sori and the Spanish, that yes, we are willing to participate with you guys and we want to work together.
Although you
for
did
me,
end
that's
up
more what it was about.
Although you did end up crushing the Americans. I got the map open here, and I'm just looking at Florida, and Charleston is their capital, and you guys had reduced them to basically Charleston, right?
Yeah, I guess, like anything, where there's a war and where there's fighting, people are going to keep pushing back and forth until one side gives in or the other side tires from it. So, yeah.
So
even though it might not have been our goal, it's definitely what ended up happening.
So you didn't feel uncomfortable crushing your former allies?
Not particularly. I mean, I'm sure there'll be a time when they come and crush us. It's everybody has their day. It just wasn't theirs that time, but I'm sure they'll rally and they'll have their moment.
Cool. All right, so how do you feel the British nation and the naval action community at large has taken your change of allegiance?
Yeah, so there was a lot of on the night that everyone figured out that we were switching, there was a lot of unsavory business going on in the chat, and it wasn't just other clans. I know some of our guys got into some heated discussions as well, so I think everyone's a little bit guilty on that part. But there's a lot of accusations and insults flying around in general chat, but that's pretty normal for an MMO, I guess. I think the most interesting piece of backlash was the forum thread dedicated to the Aussies' betrayal of the British nation, I think it was called, and not entirely sure who originally made the post, but it was basically a demand for information and an explanation as to why we did what we did. To which I responded, it's none of your business, because I was quite in a defensive mood by that stage. So there was a lot of backlash on the forums as well, people offering their opinions and things. And I think maybe it was mentioned in a few YouTube videos, and our recruitment thread blew up. It was just, yeah, it ended up being quite public in the end. Our original intent was just to slip off quietly, but I think people got wind of it and started asking, and then they noticed a lot of our members were going pirate. And contrary to popular belief, Dog's Bollocks was not the instigator and is not the leader of Aussies, as everybody decided. It was me the entire time. But I think just because he was quite vocal about the whole thing, so people just assumed it was him, I think. But that was a good little running joke for a while. But yeah, no, that was the kind of backlash we got. There was a lot of negative, but there was also a lot of positive as well. I think for the most part, Aussies is a fairly well-respected clan. We generally conduct ourselves quite... what's the word for it? We're generally well behaved towards others, I guess. Yeah, so bit of both. I was sort of glad to see it all blow over though in the end, because after a week or so of being in the limelight, it gets pretty old. I'm not one for dragging things out too much.
Yeah. So, do you feel like what happened to the British was kind of deserved? Like they got their just desserts? You think the British deserved kind of what happened to them?
Well, if you ask me, some of them did, some of them didn't. One of the unfortunate, I guess you'd call it an unfortunate casualty, was the VVV clan, the Chinese guys that worked quite closely with us. Ended up being one of the only clans left defending that area after we left. So I felt a little bit bad about having to boot them out. But props to them for being the ones that stayed there and actually gave us a fight. And they did. They gave us a good fight, but they just didn't have big enough ships, unfortunately, for them. Other clans had quite a pompous attitude. And I think actually some of the most vicious people were the public chat. Not people who weren't in clans. Were were the worst offenders. And I think if I was gonna say anyone got what they deserved, it'd probably be some of the puppies. But no particular enmity towards any of the clans, really. I mean, I'm not one to hold a grudge that much.
I see. Well, in that time since, you changed Pirate, you guys have come back and taken a large swath, basically everything you owned, like you said before, like, all the way from, well, Tampico now is owned by the Spanish under the treaty, but all the way from Yissel down to, I think it was at the height of it down to like Great River.
Yeah, it was somewhere around there. I think the British pushed back a little bit, and I know that the Swedes and the Dutch gave us a bit of a fight down there as well.
Yeah, the Swedes were down, around Great Corn because they had gotten kicked out by the French or the Dutch or something. They've since returned to their little area, but they got kind of kicked out by you guys.
Yeah, so we eventually removed the Swedish, I believe. I'm just looking at my map. They're gone now, aren't they?
Yeah, they're completely gone.
They're gone, yeah. So it's just British left now. There was some Dutch ports along there a few days ago. I see the British have taken Truxillo and Black River back, and of some of those other ports. I mean, I'm not particularly attached to the area anymore, but it's good to see that there's actually still some fighting going on. It keeps the game interesting.
Well, Truxillo was kind of like the capital of AUSEZ, like when AUSEZ was British, that was like basically the capital. It was the hub of operations where all the shipyards were, where all the materials were stored, where all the big ships were. Like you guys, I remember you saying like, we defend that at all costs. Everything else comes second to defending Truxillo.
Yeah. When we were British, it was definitely the hub for everything that we did. Now it's more about it would just be taking it to prove a point, because we have the luxury of living anywhere on the map really that we want to, and at least now with the game the way it is, we can just house ourselves out of free ports and mess with whoever we want, and it's all good fun. And there's plenty of ports around that we can take if we want to look at doing some port battles and get some loot and things like that. To take Truxillo back and forth would more just be, I don't know, I guess sticking it to people more than being of any strategic value these days.
Well, it looks like the British are definitely kind of working their way up the coast. I did hear that the Battle of Truxillo was uncontested, though it was going to be contested, but I guess things didn't work out. So the British are kind of working their way back up, kind of taking back their old kind of hunting grounds, I guess. It's unfortunate. It would have been nice to see like the entire map kind of turned black, like, to see all of Florida, all the Gulf, and all the way down to basically the bottom of the Panama region, all turn black. And well with Cuba and Haiti, I think that would have sent a very interesting kind of message to the developers about the pirate nation and its associated mechanics.
Yeah, it definitely would have, and there was a point. This was months and months ago now. There was a point when a large portion of the British clans were thinking of making the same demonstration, and there was talk that the entire council was going to flip pirate and just roll the map, just to say, look how broken this is. But it never happened. Everyone stuck with their allegiances in the end and played it out to the point it's at now.
Well, that would have been a very interesting occurrence, because then it would have been, like the British Council like the kettle calling the pot black, or no, the pot calling the kettle black. You know, like, they criticized you for turning pirate, and then, you know, for them all to flip pirate themselves.
Yeah, well, I guess lucky it was in the past for them. They can stay on their high horse.
Yeah. So, I guess pretty much like all the Fallout's kind of finished for now. But the game's still in alpha. Do you have like any desire to go back to being British? You know, maybe once the game goes into open beta, or maybe there's a, you know, I heard there's going to be a politics wipe coming up, or maybe when the game goes live, or do you feel more comfortable staying pirate, or what do you think?
Well, I mean, it'll probably be another discussion for the clan to have as a group again. Me personally, and I think from running a clan perspective, I would be really excited to see what kind of unique mechanics they offer the pirates. I'm not particularly fussed on whether I get to sail a big first-rate ship or not. I'm more excited about the thrill of the fight. So if the thrill of the fight means I get to raid coastlines and build pirate hideaways and sail a frigate, or a group of frigates to take on something much larger, I find that much more interesting and exciting than the rigidity of being in a nation and everybody sailing a line and all that kind of stuff. That's what I find more appealing. But yeah, I mean, it'll end up coming down to a group decision, I think, because I mean, there's no point keeping a clan if there's going to be nobody in it. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the matter at the moment. Anyway, things could change, you never know. But there was a point where we said we'd never go pirate. How could anyone do that? And look at us now.
Well, one final question then on the matter, you know, like, how do you feel being pirate now? Does it, like, having been pirate for a while, does it feel any different than from being British? Aside from the politics.
I think I get more of a kick out of ruining someone's day in PvP when I'm a pirate, because I know what people think of pirates, and so to lose to them is, I guess, like, what's the word? Psychologically more impactful than if you were to lose to another nation. That's my look on things. Gameplay and mechanics wise, there's really no difference. It's more of what you make of it, your mentality, and when you play the pirates. I think that makes them different, because I think the mentality behind the pirates is quite different to the nations.
Oh, how so?
I think that people, they criticize the pirates all you want, but all my interactions with them have been that they're just there to have fun and you know, give people a bit of a stirring and whatnot in PvP, whereas the nations are a lot more. It's almost more like a role play, like, oh, we have to do this for king and country sort of mentality. And if you enjoy that kind of thing, then go for it. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. But I think personally, I much prefer the mentality of the pirate nation at the moment.
I see.
If that makes sense.
It sounds like it's more laid back and kind of casual, because there's no pressure to do one thing or to be one thing.
Yeah, you basically have the freedom to do what you want, and you know, there's the pirate code, which is to you know, the other clans tend to just leave each other alone, but if you wanted to be those guys, you could. You know, the game's not stopping you. You could definitely harass other pirates, but I mean, you got more than enough to shoot at with the British and the Dutch down there, and all those other guys. But yeah, you're right. It's just a lot more laid back, relaxing, and as a result, you can have more fun because there's not as much pressure and responsibility weighing you down. you know, because you're not you're not holding ports for others. You're not taking ports for others. You're doing it because you want to. You're doing it because you can, basically. Yeah. That's how I feel about it anyway.
And you get to fly a frickin' sweet pirate flag on top of that, right?
Hells yeah. And I won't have to put a Union Jack on it when if we can ever have our own sort of standards as pirates. It'll be something completely unique. It won't be governed by any national rules or anything like that. I think it'd be quite cool.
Well, McCandless, thank you very, very much for, agreeing to have this interview and to talk about, why Aussies, ended up switching from being British to pirate. Really, really appreciate the time you've taken today to kind of, to talk to me and the rest of the Naval Action community.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So there you have it, straight from the horse's mouth. This has been Sorvesteon. Let me know what you think about Aussie's switch in the comments section below. And don't forget to click like and subscribe to my channel for more videos about naval action. Until next time, captains, take care and happy sailing.